We're going to head straight to the House of Commons over in London, where Britain's new Prime Minister is set to answer questions from lawmakers.
With all members of this House to tackle the challenges we face. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I warmly welcome the Prime Minister to her place? It's her first PMQ and it's also mine. In a leaked audio tape, the Prime Minister is heard saying that British workers need to put in more graft and that they are lacking in skill and application. She also wants to take away their basic workers' rights. In my Erdington constituency, the latest figures from the Commons Library show that children over 7,000 households are living in child poverty, and that 68% of those households have working parents. So does the Prime Minister believe that thousands of working parents on low income in my community should just put in more graft?
Well, I congratulate the Honourable Lady on her first Prime Minister's question. And what I am determined to do as Prime Minister is to make sure we have an economy with high wages and high-skilled jobs. And the way I will achieve that is through reducing taxes on people across our country and boosting economic growth. That is the way that we will make sure we get the investment and the jobs that people deserve.
I want to warmly congratulate my right and honourable friend on becoming the third woman Prime Minister. About pubs today. A pub restaurant in my constituency in Barnet got in touch with me to say they were struggling to find an energy supplier, and the quotes they had got hold of showed that they would be paying a 600% increase in their bill to £320,000. They can't survive that. Will she ensure her plan to tackle the energy price crisis helps businesses in the hospitality sector, which our communities value so much?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right. The hospitality industry is vital, and I will make sure in our energy plan that will help support businesses and people with the immediate price crisis, as well as making sure there are long-term supplies available, will help businesses as well as helping individual households.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I congratulate the Prime Minister on her appointment? When she said in her leadership campaign that she was against windfall taxes, did she mean it?
Very good.
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his welcome. I hope that we will be able to work together, particularly on areas we agree on. And I know that we have had strong support from the opposition in opposing Vladimir Putin's appalling war in Ukraine. And I want us to continue to stand up to that appalling Russian aggression that has led to the energy crisis we face now. I am against a windfall tax. I believe it is the wrong thing to be putting companies off investing in the United Kingdom just when we need to be growing the economy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that answer. I ask because the Treasury estimates are that the energy producers will make £170 billion in excess profits over the next 2 years. The Prime Minister knows she's no choice but to back an energy price freeze. But it won't be cheap, and the real choice, the political choice, is who is going to pay. Is she really telling us that she's going to leave these vast excess profits on the table and make working people foot the bill for decades to come?
Well, I understand that people across our country are struggling with the cost of living and they're struggling with their energy bills. And that is why I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills. And I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow and giving people certainty to make sure that they are able to get through this winter and be able to have the energy supplies and be able to afford it. But we can't just deal with today's problem. We can't just put a sticking plaster on it. What we need to do is increase our energy supplies long term. And that is why we will open up more supply in the North Sea, which the honourable gentleman has opposed. That is why we will build more nuclear power stations, which the Labour Party didn't do when they were in office. And that is why we will get on with delivering the supply as well as helping people through the winter.
Well, I look forward to tomorrow's statement, but the money's got to come from somewhere. And she knows that every single pound in excess profits she chooses not to tax is an extra pound on borrowing that working people will be forced to pay back for decades to come. More borrowing than is needed. That's the true cost of her choice to protect oil and gas profits, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that this country will not be able to tax its way to growth. The way we will grow our economy is by attracting investment, keeping taxes low, delivering the reforms to build projects quicker. That is the way that we will create jobs and opportunities across our country.
Keir Starmer.
So, Mr. Speaker, her first act as Prime Minister is to borrow more than is needed because she won't touch excess oil and gas profits. On that topic, how much would her planned corporation tax cut hand out to companies?
The right honourable gentleman is looking at this in the wrong way. The last time we cut corporation tax, we attracted more revenue into the exchequer because more companies wanted to base themselves in Britain, more companies wanted to invest in our country. And if taxes are put up and raised to the same level as France, which is what the current proposal is, and which I will change as Prime Minister, that will put off investors, it'll put off those companies investing in our economy, and ultimately that will mean fewer jobs, less growth and less opportunities across our country.
Mr. Speaker, it's extraordinary that not only is the Prime Minister refusing to extend the windfall tax, she's also choosing to hand the water companies polluting our beaches a tax cut. She's choosing to hand the banks a tax cut. She's choosing to hand the banks a tax cut. Add it all together, and companies that are already doing well are getting a £17 billion tax cut. While working people pay for the cost of living crisis, stroke victims wait an hour for an ambulance, and criminals walk the streets with impunity. Families and public services need every penny they can get. How on earth does she think that now is the right time to protect Shell's profits and give Amazon a tax break?
I'm on the side of people who work hard and do the right thing. That is why we will reverse the national insurance increase, and that is why we will keep corporation tax low. Because ultimately, we want investment right across our country. We want new jobs and new opportunities. And that is what I will deliver as Prime Minister.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims to be breaking orthodoxy, but the reality is she's reheating George Osborne's failed corporation tax plans. protecting oil and gas profits and forcing working people to pay the bill. She's the fourth Tory Prime Minister in 6 years. The face at the top may change, but the story remains the same. There is nothing new about the Tory fantasy of trickle-down economics. Nothing new about this Tory Prime Minister who nodded through every single decision that got us into this mess and now says how terrible it is. And can't she see there's nothing new about a Tory Prime Minister who, when asked who pays, says it's you, the working people of Britain?
Well, there's nothing new about a Labour leader who is calling for more tax rises. Tax and spend. What I'm about is about reducing taxes, getting our economy growing, getting investment, getting new jobs for people right across the country. I'm afraid to say the right honourable gentleman doesn't understand aspiration. He doesn't understand opportunity. He doesn't understand that people want to keep more of their own money. And that is what I will deliver as Prime Minister. I will take immediate action to help people with their energy bills, but also secure our long-term energy supply. I will take immediate action to make sure we have lower taxes and we grow the economy. And that way, I will ensure we have a positive future for our country and we get Britain moving.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And firstly, can I congratulate my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, for a successful campaign to become our party leader and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, it is right and proper that the government focuses its attention on rising energy costs for households across the country. But as we've heard, businesses big and small are exposed to horrific energy price increases, with no restraint provided by the domestic energy price cap and no support from government so far. For the sake of businesses in West Cornwall and on Scilly, the jobs they provide and the economy as a whole, what can my friend, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, do to ease the energy costs facing our businesses?
Well, my honourable friend is right. We do need to address the issues businesses face, and the package that we will be announcing tomorrow will do just that.
Leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure the thoughts and prayers of everyone in this House will be with the families that were caught up in the terrible shooting.
You were just listening to Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss answer questions from lawmakers in Parliament. She said that she's pledged to keep corporation tax low and said the country cannot tax its way through to growth. For more on this story, we can go across to France 24's Bénédicte Pavio standing by in London. Bénédicte, I know you were listening to that exchange in the House of Commons, and as we expected, it was a testy one between Liz Truss and the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer.
It was testy, but I think that Liz Truss's advisors back in Downing Street will be very happy so far with the way it's gone. So I think we need to just put this very briefly in context. Prime Minister's Questions is on a Wednesday. It lasts half an hour. It's particular to the United Kingdom, the way in which the head of government, the Prime Minister, comes to the House of Commons when it's sitting, unless he or she is travelling abroad and gets somebody else to answer at PMQs. It is a very particular kind of exercise. The microphones do not truly accurately pick up the absolute huge noise and how voluminous that is for anybody, whether it's a head of a party who's having a bad time. This was her first encounter with her own lawmakers. Unsurprisingly, they congratulated her for becoming the Prime Minister and leading this government. And unsurprisingly, the Leader of the Opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, in his 6 questions, went right for what is preoccupying just about everybody whether it's in pubs across the land, and that is the crisis, the cost of living crisis. The fact that energy prices, gas and electricity are soaring, that they are eye-watering, that even people with jobs don't know how they can pay. And what we haven't had since she's become Tory leader on Monday, and Prime Minister, for example, in her first address to the nation, are any specifics. We didn't get any real specifics here. We know she says you can't tax your way to growth. She wants to keep that corporation tax low. And unsurprisingly, we've got a very stark ideological contrast between Liz Truss, who is for a small state. She's a free marketeer, and indeed that is precisely why she's chosen the Chancellor of the Exchequer that she's chosen, Kwasi Kwarteng, who's been speaking to the Bank of England, to chiefs of banks and other financial institutions today to reassure the markets and explain what their outlook is. She's confirmed now we're going to get this plan with details that she will make an announcement tomorrow in the House of Commons. And Keir Starmer saying, look, windfall taxes, why are you really against them? She confirmed that she is against them. And that question that he kept on trying to get her to answer, then who's going to be paying for this? And it's really him saying, you're not protecting, you're not going to be helping the working people. And this is the nub of the ideological argument. And this is where people, for another 24 hours, yet again after 7 weeks of a Tory battle, are no clearer on what direct help they and also companies across the land facing exorbitant energy bills are going to get.
Exactly, Benedict, because this is one of the main points of what's going on, what's plaguing people's worries in the United Kingdom is these high energy costs. Yes, we're going to have more details tomorrow, but this needs to be fixed for Liz Truss sooner rather than later.
Yes, this is a country that has the highest inflation in its history in 40 years. We're at 10.1%. Not surprising that we've had national rail strikes paralysing the country repeatedly over July and August, that more are set to come. At times we've had 1 out of 10 trains running on multiple days, tube strikes. We've had postal strikes, more to come of those soon as well. Looming teachers' strikes, looming nurses' strikes, some lawyers' strikes, delaying justice for victims or indeed for people accused of something possibly wrongly. All this delay and that another 24-hour delay. And when she says, or she said yesterday, action this day, we didn't get action this day. We got talk about action this day. She hasn't mentioned action this day today, that Winston Churchill, former Conservative Prime Minister, saying, but actually people do want action this day. They want to know what concrete financial help they're going to get. When you know that inflation, and it's, by the way, it's not just energy prices, it's food prices that are absolutely soaring. You know, bread, milk, basics, where people already know that they'll have to choose between heating or eating. People are switching their fridges off at night. People are switching off their gas boilers. This is the daily reality. We are seeing vox pops across the country, multiple examples. Perhaps one of the ones, the many, that is so worrying. People who need nebulizers, who need, for medical reasons, in their home, machines that help them to survive with oxygen, who are getting care at home. They are restraining some of the appliances they are putting on because they are terrified. So this is a very real world problem and it needs real, clear solutions. And that announcement tomorrow cannot come fast enough. And anyway, when will that direct help? It may be announced tomorrow. We'll see what it involves. But what will it concretely involve and where will it be in people's wallets?
Yeah.
That is what people need to know, and they need to know that now. So, very worrying. But as far as her performance is concerned, she says she's not good at, and she doesn't enjoy that. Clearly, she's done some media training. And to be fair, it seems like she's really improved. She's obviously giving short answers, and she is trying to address. So it was about substance. It wasn't. And Keir Starmer's had to really take a deep breath and shift gears here. It is not Boris Johnson he has opposite him. It is the fourth Tory Prime Minister, as he pointed out, in 6 years. And the next, tomorrow, will be crucial for Liz Truss in what she announces and what the Chancellor announces. And then
Indeed.
she will be judged heavily by the media.
Indeed, everyone will be paying attention to what she has to say when it comes to how to keep those energy costs down. I want to talk about the cabinet, which she's named for a second here, because it's one of the most diverse in Britain's history, I believe, where none of the top 4 posts have gone to white men.
Yes, I mean, that is a complete first. Her friend, her ally, and she has filled her cabinet with allies. Yes, the top 4 posts, indeed. For example, she's got a deputy prime minister who's a woman, Therese Coffey, who's also the health Secretary of State for Health. So that's a first. You've got the first black chancellor in Kwasi Kwarteng. That's a first. You've got Suella Braverman, who's of Indian origin, who is the new Home Secretary, who, by the way, will be dealing with a very tricky, so far unresolved problem, and that is the 25 or 28,000 migrants making it illegally to British shores, coming by the 500, 600, we've gone up to 1,000 a day from the coasts of France, that ongoing problem, and this Rwanda plan that we've talked about before of actually flying illegal migrants off to Rwanda, a lot of money that has cost the United Kingdom. Whether it goes ahead or not, the United Kingdom has paid that money. And now the problem is, very predictably, and we've talked about it on France 24, it is incurring huge legal challenges in the British courts. So, yes, a very diverse and interesting cabinet, government. She surrounded herself with allies. Her problem may be this, though, and that is, apart from the crucial details that we'll get tomorrow, we hope we'll get tomorrow on the economic plan, remember this. She's just been elected by 160 or 170,000 Conservative members. She has been addressing their concerns. She now addresses the nation, not just her party. And remember that her parliamentary party, when people say concentrate on your friends, but remember your enemies and look behind you, they're not just opposite you in the House of Commons. Most of the MPs sitting there did not vote. She was not their number 1 choice. She was their number 2 or number 3 choice. Rishi Sunak came out, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, the man who resigned and set a lot of those things, along with the Health Secretary Sajid Javid, in motion. So she knows that, and she knows that the judgment will come thick and fast from the opposition, from her own benches, and we will watch to see if there are signs of rebellion. Perhaps she'll enjoy a very brief honeymoon, briefly in the polls. Let's remember also the Labour Party has been consistently 10 or 12 points ahead of the Conservatives. Of course, 4 prime ministers in 6 years, 12 years in government. This is yet another Conservative government, yet another Conservative prime minister, even if she is the 3rd female UK prime minister. So she has to call an election within 2 years. She's got very little time to make a good impression and try, as she says, to win that next general election. And that's what MPs, her MPs, care about.
Benedict, thank you very much for that. Benedict Pavia reporting there from front of the House of Commons this Wednesday.